Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, and welcome to another segment of Talking About Success. And I think a lot of us think about success doesn't even become an issue after you die. But I have a very interesting guest today, Sondra Sneed, who has written a book called What to Do When You're Dead. I love it. And tell us the subtitle of the book.
A former atheist interviews the source of infinite being.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So you are someone who communicates directly with God. God speaks to you and through you. Mm-hmm. And I've had a reading with you, which I found fascinating. And how did this come to be? First of all, I want to know how you developed this talent or skill or capacity. And then I'd like you to talk about how you came to write the book.
Okay. I love your words. You know, most people would think of it as a gift. Mm-hmm. But when it first happened, it was kind of a curse to me because it presented all kinds of responsibility. But I was an atheist at the time, and I had lost a job I loved and a man I loved. And I was suffering these panic attacks. I was feeling so unloved, unwanted, like a nothing. And I would go down into the basement to write, trying to quell these feelings that were quite damaging to my sense of being at all. So I would just write and write and write and write. And I filled up a whole notebook with my lament, and then I put the notebook down and I opened up a brand new notebook. I had my pencil on the top line and I was about to write, so I was thinking, and I didn't notice until the pencil stopped that it had been moving. And I looked down and what I saw was, unemployed, it is my assertion you are employed by me. So my notebook started talking to me, and that sparked a year of solitude, and I filled up 10 spiral notebooks taking dictation from this being we call God. But it took me 7 years to have the courage to sit down and write a book for publication, and then that's what my first book, What to Do When You're Dead, is, that first one.
Very good, very good. And how would you tell us, what is the main message in your book, or messages in the book? What are you saying to the reader? What do you want us to take away if we read your book?
As much as there is amazing information about the nature of all natures, the nature of existence, and there's information about how God even brings organic life to the surface of this beautiful orb in space we call Earth. But essentially, the theme running through it is that man is on a path of self-destruction. I don't think that's a big surprise for people, and in man's path of self-destruction, if we wipe ourselves out, which apparently we do about every 10,000 years, this time, what's way off about this time is that we're actually poisoning our food supply, and we may not make it back from our own extinction, which could trap billions of souls on Earth. Mm. And this is the aspect of us that belongs to God, and lost souls is probably the worst news that God could ever deliver or live with God's self.
So talk about that, because we had talked about before we came on air about, I think you were talking about different levels of vibration and how a soul gets trapped. That's fascinating to me. How does a soul get trapped on Earth?
Well, everything is vibration. Mm-hmm. Even science has found that every molecule has its own unique vibration. So what we are is an organized collection of molecules. Mm-hmm. And there are 3 divisions of that organization. The first from source is spirit. Spirit is that individuated form of us, that individuated from the source of all being, that is God. Then in the, what spirit begat soul. Soul becomes this interim organ between spirit and body, because spirit cannot be contained within body. It cannot be contained within physical form. It would blow it up. Mm-hmm. So the interim organ is the soul. The soul has a mind, and the body has its own mind. Its mind is about survival. So everything on this earth is to facilitate this physical body's survival. And if we don't know that we have a soul and we feed only on the survival of the body, then we can easily lose our own soul in the process of the life that we have on earth. And this is mechanistically an aspect of vibration and levels of density for what would differentiate what is spirit, soul, and body.
I like that. That's good.
It's pretty complicated, but...
Well, you know, I've studied enough of this to know that it's just commonly getting down to more dense vibration, and it's all like a continuum, and yeah, so it makes sense to me. So when you first started to have this sense that you had this capacity to dictate or be, you used the word Godscribe, to be a scribe for this God communication. I love what you say, this being called God. You said this beautiful orb we call Earth. I love it, very poetic.
Thank you.
What, at first you resisted it because you didn't like, you felt there was a responsibility you didn't want to feel with that?
Yes, the resistance was bringing it out into public. I wanted to just kind of keep it a secret.
I've talked to many people who have this ability, who have that same experience. What was it that made you finally say, no, I have to bring this out, or I'm going to take the risk or whatever to transcend that fear? Because we all, whether we have your ability or we're a musician, we all have some fear of being fully ourselves, being fully present. What helped you or allowed you or pushed you to transcend that fear?
I had a visit by a woman who over tea, one day I began to talk about the experience that I had had, and she was stunned and amazed, and she said, there are so many people who would want to hear this story. So when I decided to sit down and write the first book, many of the conditions of my coming out were illustrated in the first chapter of this conversation with God, when I learned what my true purpose was and why I was born, that this was a mission. Oddly enough, it took me 3 readings of the book after it had been published for me to actually see the word mission and understand it. And that was the moment that my first step into my mission began, when I saw that this wasn't just something interesting for people to share with me. This is something that is a way of life, and stepping onto that path was an essential necessity for the soul, my soul, and for many other souls who will recognize their own purpose when they read the book.
Very good. You know, it's interesting because a few years ago, I changed my definition of success. I used to say success was being able to create whatever result you wanted to intend in the world. And I don't quite remember why I changed it, but I remember what I changed it to, and it's been that forever since. Success is fulfilling your soul's mission. And if somehow you don't fulfill your soul's purpose in this lifetime, then you have, it's not like you've failed forever.
Right. Because
from what I can see, you get to come back and do it again.
You have forever to get it done.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't really fail.
Right.
But I think that has given me a greater sense of urgency, perhaps, to like really be on purpose and not be distracted from what I'm here to do. So
it's a different feeling, isn't it?
It is.
It's coming, there's a power that's coming through you on that path, that it's almost pulling you toward your destiny, instead of you trying to march toward or work so hard toward it. You just put your first foot kind of almost there and the path shows up. Yeah. You put your next foot out there and the path shows up to carry you.
Well, it's that wonderful scene in one of those Indiana Jones movies where there's a chasm and they have to get from here to there and there's nothing there. And the guy just steps onto what looks like air, but there's something there that he steps onto and it supports him.
Yes.
And then they throw a little sand down and you can see there's kind of like a glass bridge or something. But that sense of, if I'm willing to put and express my faith, then it's going to be met back with support. So that's cool.
Right.
That's cool. Well, I wish we could talk for hours. I find this really fascinating,
Me too.
but we have limits of our time because we are a television show here. So anyway, I really appreciate your joining us. Tell people, again, the title of your book and where they can find it, and if you have a website, how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. So my website is sondrasneed.com, and that's SONDRASNEED.com. And if people go to my website and sign up for what I call the Weisenheimer letters, because God is the word Weisenheimer means annoying know-it-all. And, and what people will notice in my book that I get corrected all the time in my perspective from God. So I now have a mailing that I let God decide what we're going to talk about, and then it's an opportunity for people to stay in touch, and they can sign up for that on my website, and they'll get a free download, the 5 principles for quieting your mind and listening to your higher self, if they do that.
Very good. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I've not read your book completely, but I skimmed through a lot of it today, and I found myself stopping and reading and going, whoa, this is really cool. So I would encourage you all to take a look at this book and to get in touch with Sondra. My reading with you, as I said, was very profound, and I'm kind of bowled over by how you're able to do what you do and so powerfully impact another human being. Today it was called Me. So if you'd like to be one of those human beings, you also can take advantage of her services, and you can go to her website to do that. So we are here to fulfill our mission. That really is the true purpose of success. If you don't know what it is, you can't fulfill it. So her work's all about doing that. So I would encourage you to get in touch with her. So until I see you next time, I want you to go out there and create the life of your dreams and make sure that dream is aligned with your purpose. Until next time, take care.